Well, we are starting a new series today called Uncomplicated. And I was thinking this week about how many people do really crazy things. Like people literally swim with sharks. I mean, I think we've all, if you've been in the ocean, you've probably swam with sharks and didn't know it. But people willfully choose to get in the water and swim around with sharks, which is crazy. I'm not the most adventurous person. I'll go with adventure, but I have some fears. I've talked about that. I have fear of heights. And now what's dangerous for me is as I ride roller coasters and do things with my kids who have absolutely no fear, I now not only fear for my own safety, but now I fear for their safety. And so now I trying to hold on for myself, but I'm also holding them in just so they don't fall out. And I know they won't, and it's irrational, but I still have those fears. But people do crazy things. Recently, I don't know if you saw this, but a guy jumped out of an airplane, which isn't that uncommon, but he jumped out of an airplane without a parachute. Did you guys see this? 25,000 feet. He chose to jump out of an airplane without a parachute to land in a net. A net the size, about the third of a size of a football field. He willfully chose to do this. And I don't get it, I don't understand it, but people have to have this they have this desire for adventure. But then I thought about relationships. And I thought about how at times with relationships we are not adventurous. We are afraid. We live in fear of what's next. And this is all kinds of relationships. So this isn't just marriage or dating relationships. I know not everyone in this room is married or in a dating relationships, but that is part of it. And if you have a Facebook, I even think it's interesting, single, in a relationship, engaged, married. It's complicated, right? And that happens in relationships. It's a Facebook status that you can check, right? We see that. There's complications when it comes to parents and children. And it seems like it often becomes even more complicated the older children become. Sometimes things become complicated. Work relationships. You may not like the people that you work with, but you see them every day. You're around them all the time, and things are complicated. Or maybe you have a neighbor, and things have become complicated with those neighbors. Or maybe it's your classmates, or maybe it's a teacher, or maybe it's your principal. There's issues with people. Relationships can be extremely complicated. Extremely complicated. And so I want to spend the next 4 weeks looking at these just 4 practices. What if we were able to put these 4 practices into place? Could it make things a little less complicated? Could we uncomplicate them just a little bit? And so we have to figure out why are they so complicated? And so let me say this, and I hope you'll hear me. Relationships are complicated because you're complicated. I'm complicated. We are complicated people. And so when you put complicated people together, things don't always go well. And so we have to first start there. And I'm sorry to break it to you if you've never realized that you're a complicated person, but your past comes into play. Your experiences, what people have done or said to you. These things play into our lives and they affect all of our relationships, our personalities, our ego, all of these things play in. And this is not new. You're not weird if you're in a difficult relationship. But there's hope. I have hope for our relationships. I believe, and I know not everyone here is a follower of Jesus, but I believe as followers of Jesus that we have hope for our relationships. And so, my goal is in this series is that you'll focus on yourself. All right? So it might be easy to immediately jump to someone else. And you might hear these things and you might think, oh, I wish they were here to hear this, right? You may feel the urge to want to bump someone around you or point to someone. Let's focus on me. Let's focus on you. Let's focus on ourselves. I think that if we'll take care of ourselves first, it will do us well in all of our relationships. I want to quickly just look in the Old Testament. Let's go really far back. Genesis 4, 1 through 8. If you don't have a Bible, there should be one around you. That's our gift to you. We'd love to give that to you. Genesis 4, 1 through 8. This is at the very beginning. And I just want to lay out that things have been complicated for a long time. Genesis 4, 1 through 8. It says, Adam lay with his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. She said, with the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man. Later, she gave birth to his brother Abel. Now Abel kept flocks, and Cain worked the soil. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord. But Abel brought fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. And the Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering. But on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door and desires to have you, but you must master it." Now Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let's go out to the field." And while they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. So we see in the very beginning that relationships are difficult, and we see for Cain that all of these things begin to happen. There's this jealousy, there's envy, we see a fit of rage, there's a failure to even communicate how he's feeling and the hurts that he has. There's this rivalry, and he acts out on it. And it's interesting that the Lord says, look, if you do what is right, will you not be accepted? Will things not go well for you if you do what is right? But if you don't do what is right, sin is crouching outside your door, just waiting for you. It desires to have you. And I think it's true for us now. There is this opportunity through this series. I honestly, I don't say this every time. I mean, I think every time we come together, there's an opportunity for our lives to significantly change. But I really believe that through this series that there's an opportunity for our relationships to look completely different. But will we do what is right? Will we choose to do what we hear over the next few weeks? So we're going to look at some practical teachings. A lot of times when we read the Bible, it can be extremely difficult to really understand what's going on. I really feel like these next few weeks, they're pretty straightforward. They're pretty simple. But don't confuse simple with easy to put into practice. Right? Don't confuse that. They may be simple, but they're going to be difficult for us to do. Today's message is just titled, "You Only Have Today." You only have today. I don't know how often you ask the what if question in your life. If you've asked, well, what if I would have done this? What if I would have said yes to that? Or what if I would have moved there? I think about that a lot for myself. I grew up in Oklahoma, and I had dreamed of going to the University of Oklahoma, but something happened in high school, and I decided that I was going to go to Oklahoma State and just room with a friend and go there and not knowing what life was going to look like. And then something radically changed. I ended up going to a Nazarene University, a Christian college in Olathe, and playing football and meeting my wife, and has really led me into ministry. And I often think back, well, what if? Like, what if I wouldn't have said yes and went to Mid-America? What would have happened? Or what if I wouldn't have taken a chance? Or what if I wouldn't have asked them to do it? Or what we play this what if game. Or how about the I wish I would have? Gosh, I wish I would have done that. Or I wish I would have said that. Or why didn't I? Why didn't I give it a chance? Or why didn't I step out in faith and trust God? Or why didn't I forgive that person? Why didn't I? A couple weeks ago, Heather took my daughter to girls' camp with lots of other kids. And so I brought them up and got them packed away. And I get back home. And when I get home, I realize my dog, my great lab, had eaten a box of chocolate donuts. This isn't uncommon for my dog. He eats anything he can get to. But my thought was, well, why did I leave him there? I know that that's what he's going to do. And so, he doesn't get sick as far as I know. And so I'm like, okay. And so Cade, my boy, and I, we leave and we come back and I'm going through the house and I walk in the back of the house and this is what I find. If you can't tell what that is a bag of flour in a bedroom. And he had pulled a bag of flour off of the counter and decided to carry it into a bedroom and shred it apart. And I wasn't very happy. We're lucky we still have a dog. He didn't go to the farm. And so I get it cleaned up and I put it in a small trash can. I sit it in the kitchen and I get everything cleaned up and I go about my day. And I'm outside later on and Cade comes outside and he says, Dad, Norman got the flour again. Like, what? So I walk in and now it is through my kitchen and he has carried it down into the basement and has spread it in the basement. And at this point, I can't be mad at him, right? I mean, the whole time I'm thinking, wow, it's me, right? It's my fault. I wish I would have put it up. Why didn't I? I mean, what if I would have just done what I was supposed to do? So we think about relationships and that silly thing, that silly story. It's so minor, but for our lives, we get to this point and we think, man, what if? Or I wish I would have. Or why didn't I? And see, so some of you right now have dealt with, you've dealt with losing someone recently. Right? Or someone is sick and you know it's just any time or any day. And so you will begin to walk through these questions. Man, why didn't I? Or I wish I would have. But this is what I know to be true. So I know to be true is it's not too late. It's not too late for us to say, okay, I have today. I have today, and I'm going to begin to change some things in my life right now. Because I think if we're going to uncomplicate our relationships, we have to understand that we have today. That we have today, and we have to begin to make the most for today. But many of us think, well, I'll eventually get to that. I'll eventually tell that person how I feel, or I'll eventually seek forgiveness. We'll eventually make up. I'll eventually forgive. One day I'll spend time with them. I'm just busy right now, but eventually I'll get to them and I'll spend time with them, or I'll speak kind words and tell them how I feel. One of the jobs of being a pastor is doing funerals, and I can't tell you how many times I've stood here with people if they've talked about the loved one that they've lost, and the whole time I'm thinking about this, did they know? Did they know you felt this way about them? Did they know how much you appreciated them? Did they know how much you cared about them? Because at that point, it's a little late. It's not too late right now, though. Like, we understood that we were going to make the most out of today. Today. So Ephesians 5, 15 through 16. We're just going to look at two verses right now. Two verses. This is going to be pretty straightforward. This is a guy named Paul who is going to write this to a church in what's called Ephesus. It's present-day Turkey. And when I read these things, I always think, okay, Paul wrote this for a reason. He wrote this because people were struggling with these things. And so Paul would catch wind that the church is having difficulty in relationships or in marriages or just in life. And so Paul's like, all right, I'm gonna write to these people. And what I want you to understand is we don't worship Paul. But what Paul says is to imitate him as he has imitated Jesus. And so we understand that as Paul writes, that he's writing in the context of knowing who Jesus is, the teachings of Jesus. And that comes out in his writings. And so this is what he says, Ephesians 5, 15 through 16. Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil. I just want to take a really quick overview of this. Be very careful then how you live. Be diligent in how you live your life. Don't just click on autopilot, which many of us do. We get in this pattern, we get busy, every day begins to look the same. We don't remember driving to work, we get to work, and we're like, I don't even remember stop signs, I don't remember stop lights, I just show up where I'm supposed to be, and we just click on autopilot, and we go through our day like it's not important. Don't miss what's right in front of you. The things that are most important right in front of you, don't miss those. And so he's saying right in the very beginning, be very careful then how you live. Be diligent. Not as unwise, but as wise. Just very, very blatantly, don't live your life like a fool. Don't live your life like a fool. Understand that your daily decisions matter, that they're significant. The decisions that you'll make today, the decisions that you'll make tomorrow when it comes to relationships matter, that they are significant. Making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil. Now, some of you type A personality people are like, I got to make the most of every single moment that I have. And what I think that he's meaning, and in the original language, it says this, to redeem the time. To redeem the time. See, your time is valuable, but it's limited. It's unlike any other resource that we have. I mean, your energy, you run out of energy, you take a nap, you drink a 5-hour energy, you have a espresso, you get something, you get some more energy, and you go through your day. Money, I mean, you may not have much of it, but there's an opportunity to get more. You can make more money. You can find money. That's not a limited resource. It might be limited in a sense, but it's renewable. You can get more of it. Your food, we can get more food, but your time is not renewable. So Paul is saying, how will you use it? How will you use the time that you have? Because not only is it not renewable, we just don't know how much we have. We have no idea. That's a sobering fact. We have no idea how much time that we have. And so time, I believe, is the currency of our life, and none of us know how much we have. Time is the currency of our life, and none of us know how much we have. The only thing that we control when it comes to our time is how we'll spend it. Is how we'll spend it. And so Paul is saying, let's be wise. Let's not live unwise. Let's make the most of every opportunity. And so when it comes to wisdom, I don't think many of us, myself included, I don't think a lot of time I'm asking God for wisdom. I'm asking God for lots of things, but I'm not always asking for him to make me more wise. These aren't going to be on the screen, but just real quickly, here's a couple of scriptures about wisdom. James 1:5, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God. Don't know what to do? We often run to the internet or we run to someone else. What if we begin to ask God? I don't know what to do, God. Would you give me wisdom with this? And it says, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given him. Proverbs 8:11-12, for wisdom is better than jewels. It's better than jewels, and all of you may desire cannot compare with her. Proverbs 3:13, blessed is the one who finds wisdom and the one who gets understanding. So what would happen if we begin to say, all right, God, give me wisdom to make the most of every day? As you wake up and you say, look, I don't know if today's my last. It's sobering. But I don't know if today's my last. Would you help me to make the most of every opportunity that I have today? Proverbs 13:20, it'll be on the screen if you want to look at it in your Bible, if you want to circle it or highlight it. I think this is extremely important for us as we figure out how to uncomplicate relationships. He who walks with the wise grows wise, but a companion of fools suffers harm. I think one of the most important things that you can do and that I can do is surround ourselves with wise people. Who is it around you that does relationships well? Sit with them, talk with them. Who has a marriage that you respect, that you appreciate, and it looks like they might have it all together, even though they don't have it all together, but at least somewhat they look like they have it all together. What would it look like to sit with them? Because this is what I know as a youth pastor, and I was a youth pastor for about 10 years. I would often sit with a student who was going through something. I'm like, have you talked to anybody? And like, yeah, I talked to my friends. They're giving me good advice. I'm like, I understand that you're friends, but for a 7th grader to ask a 7th grader about relationships isn't always the wisest thing to do. And so for you and I, as we think about relationships, as we think about our life, and maybe it's an issue with work or as a boss or with your boss, what would it look like for you to surround yourself with wise people? Many of us don't do this. We're seeking advice specifically maybe from people who don't have your best interest in mind, don't really know the situation, and as this says, a companion of fools suffers harm. I've seen this happen a lot. I see this happen with people. They're not seeking the right people to get advice from, and it leaves them feeling empty, disappointed. It leaves them worse off than they already was. And this is what I know. I know because I see this in my own life. We become like those we surround ourselves with. You become like those you surround yourself with. So who are you wanting to become? I don't know if you've watched the Olympics at all over the last couple weeks, but Michael Phelps has just dominated. And early in the swimming, I don't know if anyone's seen him swim or any of the swimmers. There's these big purple circles on these guys. I don't know if you've seen this in some of the ladies as well. And so I do what most people do. I just Google it. What are these circles on Michael Phelps? And it's this thing called cupping. And what they do is they actually are putting these small glass cups and they're sucking air out of it and they're drawing blood. They're breaking the blood vessels, and it's supposed to create a way of healing. And so I began to investigate this and I started to read it. And this is the funniest thing I found was that it's never been proven to work. Literally, this is thousands of years old. Thousands of years old. And it's never been able to be documented that it does anything good for anybody. But I started thinking, like, it's Michael Phelps. Like, was he the first? And then everyone around is like, well, if Michael Phelps is doing it, then I'm doing it. I don't know what it does, but I want these purple circles on my arms and my back because it's going to help me. It's going to help me win. And so you begin to see all these people have this all over them. It does nothing for them. What are you doing in your life that's not helping at all? Almost even making things worse. What if you seek someone out who is much wiser than you are? How would it impact and influence your relationships? So part of being wise is making the most of every opportunity that we have. And I think our relationships are often complicated. The most complicated is because we don't do this. We just waste away a lot of our lives. We're not doing the things that are most important. We put off important things for trivial things, time wasters, video games, social media, staring at a cell phone when the most important people are right next to us. Over the summer, my wife and I decided to completely walk away from social media. And so in walking away from social media, I pretty much walked away from my phone, and I would leave my phone and I would go hours and days really without even looking at my phone. It was so freeing. And I realized often what was happening is I was in an important moment with people, my kids, my family, my friends, and I'd have to stop. I'd have to document this important moment that was happening in my life. And I love social media. I don't think there's anything evil by it, but there's just something about thinking that's more important. Right? There's something about giving more time to something that's trivial and not what's most important. And so if we begin to live life in a way where we say, okay, well, what's the most important thing for me to do? How can I make the most of every opportunity? It's beginning to see that we have to be a part of something bigger than ourselves. This is for all of us, no matter if you're older in life, if you're a teenager with us today, what is it that is a part of your life that is bigger than you? That's bigger than you. So when there's opportunity, see, because there's going to be opportunities that always come up, and then we have to ask ourselves, did I make the most of that? Was I wise in that moment, or did I live in an unwise way? So is there an opportunity to share a word with someone about Jesus? To encourage someone? Not to condemn someone, not to beat someone up, but really just to share your story with someone, the hope that you have and how he's changed you. Maybe it's spending time with someone who's struggling. You know someone's having a hard time, and so you give them a call. You spend an evening with them. Maybe it's walking across the street to visit a neighbor. We did a series years ago, and I asked you, do you know your neighbors? Like if we sat face to face and I said, who are the 6 houses around you? Who are those people? Could you say? Well, what if we begin to say, okay, I want to make the most of every opportunity, and that means even with my neighbors, asking how their family's doing, creating conversation and caring for those people who live right around us. It's volunteering somewhere. It's, again, being a part of something bigger than yourself. And so we have to begin to ask God, okay, God, give me ears to hear. Let me be available when I need to say something. Give me eyes to see. Where are there opportunities around me that I often waste? And then I started thinking about your job and my job. Whatever that looks like, whether it's as a nurse or a teacher or a salesman, you're a business leader, you're a homemaker, whatever that job looks like, it's more than a job. It is more than a job. It is an opportunity. And so at the end of the day, you have to, as Paul is saying, you have to ask yourself, did I make the most of every opportunity today? Was I a person of peace for the people around me? Did people feel hopeful because I was in their presence? Not because of you, but because you're carrying the presence of Jesus with you if you're a follower of Jesus. So what would it look like for you to make the most of every opportunity at your job? And not see it as just something you click in and you click out and you get paid and that's all there is. What if there's something more? So if you're going to see your relationships become less complicated, we're going to have to understand that you only have today. You only have right now that's guaranteed to you and to me, and so we have to make the most of every opportunity that we have. So listen to me. And this is going to be difficult, but now is the time to take care of your marriage. Now. Now is the time. Not eventually, not when they figure things out. Now. And that's hard for some of you, and marriage is not going well for some of you right now. I know that. But now is the time. Now is the time to forgive and to quit punishing people. Now. Now is that time. Now is the time to seek reconciliation if possible. Week 4 of this series is going to be just called Make Peace. To make peace. And now is the time to do that. Now is the time to quit avoiding the conflict in your relationships. The person you work with, your neighbor, a family member, now is the time to have a difficult conversation. If you need help with that, call me. I'll sit in with you. I'll give you advice. But now is the time to have those conversations. Now is the time to tell someone that God loves them. Now. Now. Now is the time to fight for justice and to speak up for things that are are right. Guys, let me talk to you for a second, mainly because I'm a guy, and so that's easier for me to approach you as men. Now is the time, if you are employed, to work your job for the glory of God. To work hard. To not take advantage of the system or of people. To work really hard. But then to leave. To leave. At the end of the day, say, I did all I could. I made the most of every opportunity. And then to walk away. And to go home, and if you're married, to be present with your wife. To go home and check and see how your wife is doing if you're married. To serve her. We're going to talk more about that next week, but to serve her and not just get home. And I know you're tired after a long day, and so not just taking care of yourself, but to walk in and do all you can for your spouse. And then after that, is you pay attention to your kids. This is hard sometimes. We're tired, had long days. Kids can be difficult. But guys, dads, married, not married, if you have children, make the most of every opportunity with your kids. Every day. Every day. I heard someone else say this, and so I've taken this on myself. If my kids ask me to do something, it is my goal to never say no. To never say no. No matter what I'm doing. If my son comes up and says, Dad, you want to go play wiffle ball? No matter what I'm doing, if it's reasonable, to not say no. To not say no. To be available and do everything I can with my kids. I do not want to get to the end of my life and ask myself, did I make the most of every opportunity with my kids? I don't want to play that I wish I would have, or why didn't I? I want to make the most of today. I want to be really wise in how I spend my time, but this can be difficult. I mean, Kate literally will hit wiffle balls till I cannot feel my arm anymore, right? Right? Just for hours, he'll just stand there and he'll hit wiffle balls. I'm like, you want to go do something else? No, let's just keep doing this. And then as my daughter gets older, things become more difficult. And I share these stories with my kids, and my daughter's getting old enough now, I ask her permission. I ask if I can talk about these things. And so if I ever do let you into my family, don't feel like it's an opportunity for you to go talk to them about whatever I shared. But even this week, my daughter went back to school, and it's been a rough few days. She didn't necessarily get the teacher that she wanted, and she doesn't have a lot of her friends in her class. And so Wednesday, I pick her up from school, and first day, and I could just tell in her spirit something was not right. And so, Kennedy, you okay? Yeah, Dad, I'm okay. You okay? I feel like I need a push. Kennedy, are you okay? And she says, I'm okay. And she just starts weeping, sitting in the van. She just starts weeping. And she said, I'm okay. I'm like, it doesn't look like you're okay. And then she just starts laughing hysterically. And I'm like, Heather, what is going on right now? She's 10. Please help me if this is the future of my life. And she's like, I don't know why I'm crying. I'm like, why are you laughing? I don't know why I'm laughing. And it is hard. And it is hard right now. There are periods in life where it is difficult to be a dad. It's difficult to be a mom too. But I just know being a dad, it is difficult. And so that night, I lay in bed with her and I press and I check on her heart. And I could have wasted time. I could have done something else. But we have to make the most of every opportunity. And so it is my goal as I'm learning to be a dad, is I want to go to bed exhausted every day. I want to leave everything that I have for the people that are around me. And at the end of the day, when my head hits the pillow, I want to be exhausted. Because I've making the most of every opportunity. And I don't do that every day. I don't do that every day. I get to the end of the day, I'm like, man, I feel like today I wasted my time. I didn't make the most of every opportunity with Heather or my children. And I ask God to forgive me. And when I get home from work the next day, I'll sit in my car and I'll ask God to give me the strength to be able to do what I need to do that day. But we have to make the most of every opportunity. And finally, there's this. Matthew 6:33-34. It says this. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. And so I'm not going to worry about tomorrow. I'm going to make the most of today, and in making the most of today, I'm going to seek God's kingdom for my life. And what that means is I'm seeking his ways. What he wants for me is more important than what I want for myself. So every day, we seek his kingdom. And so some of you might be here today and you might say, this is kind of new to me. I haven't been to church in a long time. This idea of Jesus and his kingdom. And I just want you to hear that there's a God who has created you and loves you deeply. And this is what I want you to understand, is he cares about your relationships. Most of Jesus' teachings dealt with relationships. And as we read Paul and a lot of his writings, it deals with relationships. And so it's obvious from those teachings that relationships can be complicated and they can be difficult. But there are these teachings that we can apply to our lives. And so maybe today you would just say, I don't know about Jesus, but I'm going to make the most of every opportunity this week. I'm gonna put this into practice. I'm just going to see how it affects me. And hopefully at some point, hopefully soon, maybe even today, you would say, look, I want to come into that kingdom. I want to understand what it means to follow Jesus, to be forgiven and to follow him in every area of our lives. And some of us have done that, but it really hasn't translated into making the most of every opportunity. Like, we confess to be Christians. At some point we said a prayer, but it really hasn't made its way into every relationship. And so that's my goal for you. It's my goal for me. That every person I come in contact with, whether they're a stranger, my neighbor, or my family, is that I won't waste a day. I will make the most of every opportunity. And I believe that if I do that, my relationships will be a little less complicated. Just pray with me. God, thanks for today. Thanks for the wisdom that you give us. God, I pray for all of us. I pray that we would make the most of every opportunity that we have, that we would see what is most important. And at the end of the day, we'll seek your kingdom and care more about what you want for our lives than we want for ourselves. God, I know there's all kinds of complicated relationships represented in this room, whether it's dating or marriage or father-son, mother-daughter, whatever that looks like. It's in the workplace. It's with our neighbors. It's difficult. But for many of us, as we call ourselves followers of you, Lord, would you help us to take your presence into every place that we go and make the most of every opportunity? I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.